Alright, welcome back everybody. I am Follygon, and we are going to continue working on our D.VA character sculpt here. And I know it still doesn't look like D.VA, and that's partially because, we haven't thrown in the hair and the headphones and all that. But it's also partially because our facial proportions aren't as close to what hers are, the character D.VA. So she has a bit of a rounder face, D.VA does. And then she also kind of has a sharper chin. So, we'll start working on some of that stuff here, and we can kind of start giving her characteristic facial features, as well as just kind of, if we have time in this part, we'll start putting in some hair or some other stuff like that. So, beginning here, we just kind of want to work on general basic proportions for the character D.VA. And it could help if we put the hair in first, but I would like to work on the face just a little bit more before we do that. So let's go ahead and start working on some of that. So we have all our subdivisions. That makes it super nice for this kind of thing. And we're looking for a bit of a rounder face. And what's great about, having all the separated parts that we do is it makes it really nice for making these big kind of, changes that were proportional changes to the face. So I can smooth out this hard crease and start to get that transition a little bit more. It's also going to help me and help you guys see your stuff. If you shift your light around, it might seem like such a small thing, but you'd be surprised how different your character and mesh can look under different lighting environments. So switch your light around, switch your material around quite often, and you'll be thankful for it in the end. Switch between having perspective on and off a few times here and there can also help with that stuff. So we'll keep adjusting some parts and pieces here. Mainly it's going to be from here down. And I would also kind of like to, she has this bit of a, most people have this shape as being pretty, I guess swollen. It's the way, the part of your lid right here, I'm not sure if it's fat. I would assume, looking at it in all the references that I've looked at in male and female characters, you got some I guess it's fat. Really, it's something I should research and look up and be more knowledgeable on. But it's just a plain change that I am aware of that happens, in particular in female characters. It can become really obvious, but it's just a defining feature here that really kind of affects the shape and overall proportions of the eyes here. I'll continue to mess with that. Excuse me, and we'll see what we can get here. So basic larger big picture stuff. What we're looking at here is roundness to the face, as well as from the chin down, maybe trying to get more of a point. And a good way to maybe do something like that is to mask lasso, get your transpose line in the middle, and kind of pull in like so. And it might be easier if we grab a little bit more here, and I'm just kind of smoothing out that mask, making it a little softer, and we can try to pull that in. And that is going to be too much, but like I've said in previous videos, I like to over-exaggerate stuff, kind of push it farther than it needs, because if you don't push it far enough, or farther than it needs, sometimes you're questioning if you did enough of the change to even make a difference. So I like to push farther than what you would actually want, and then from there you can kind of correct that and push it back the other way. So think of it like a slider. If you're working on your, you got your character creator in Saints Row or whatever, you slide it too far one way, it starts to look like a freaking creepy alien creature, and you have obviously made a mistake. And sometimes, you keep that character change because it's funny or interesting. But most of the time, at least for me here, it's better to just slide that guy, that little slider back down a little bit. So we'll do that here, and I'll fill in kind of some of these deep crevices. Most of this is gonna not be that deep, you know, we'd be cutting into where the teeth are in the cheek if that were the case. But again, having these subdivision levels for me right now is super helpful for me to just kind of step up and down through them, make big scale changes, as well as being able to smooth stuff out at those varying degrees. So that was just a little trick there where I kind of trim dynamic that in a bit and then smoothed it out, and I'll kind of do it here too. I kind of want to get a bit of a plane change. That's not exactly what I was looking for, but it might do if we can get a little bit more point. Might be good. We'll probably have to mess with this more later. We'll probably have to mess with everything more later. That's kind of the whole point of jumping around quickly and going from part to part. But what it does do is, you know, every half hour or so, or whatever you're doing, you know, even from the start of this video, this character is kind of starting to develop a new kind of face shape, as well as, you know, just by changing the eyes, because the eyes have so much emotion, you can really start to see some different emotions coming through there. So if you're going if you're going for like a more angry or like docile character, eyebrows are also like very expressive. So depending on how you have them positioned or whatever you're doing, can affect a lot of this stuff as well. And the head is like, looks like your head's a little swollen, D.Va. I think we want to adjust a bunch of this stuff as we go too. So we will do that here. And we're kind of getting, whoopsies, we're kind of getting a nice good curve there that I like that's going on. So we'll try to kind of keep that throughout our character sculpt as we go. And I'm just kind of trying to give this a little bit of flatness on the forehead. Forehead's not super round in this area. You got your, I think it's called your frontalis major maybe. Really, I am probably completely wrong, but it's the muscle here for your eyebrows, and it has a characteristic flatness to it. You can kind of look at a bunch of references. Looking at female and male faces from a profile perspective can be very, very helpful for this kind of stuff. And then after that kind of plane change, which is about on the hairline up there, that's where it'll start curving back. So we're getting there, all in good time. And you could even, you know, what I like to do is exaggerate the shape of the skull that's under the skin here, and really kind of pull that up to really kind of transition the side of the head. But we had a pretty nice roundness going on there. So this side is, or the side of our character's head is really starting to get a bit muddy. And we're kind of taking some steps backward, but that's important, I think. Not taking steps backward, but kind of experimenting, finding out what works and what doesn't is super important, at least to me. So try new things, and if it doesn't work, hey, you got all your undos, or the way like I prefer to do is, you know, most of the time you can just kind of resculpt over it and fix the mistakes that you've made. I would prefer to, you know, I think it's important to try new stuff and just try to fix it yourself, because if you keep trying things and then undoing like 100 actions, I mean, you're gonna have a tough time moving forward, and you're not gonna get anywhere too quickly. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Making sure that things are working from other angles as well with the eyes. I really want this to kind of line up with, well, what's going to be. I could make that an actual crease with the pinch brush, but where that plane change happens, I kind of want to line up there with the eye. And it can be helpful to kind of put a little quick pinch in there, but I wouldn't recommend keeping it in on a female character in particular, just because, like I said, those round shapes are really important for what we're aiming for here. Another thing I like to do is merge this bottom eyelid into our face, and we will do that here soon once I kind of adjust this shape a little bit more and get it closer to what I want. But I like to merge that bottom lid because, well, in real life it is kind of connected there. The flesh is connected, and taking a basic shape like this and merging it down can be a pretty good way to get that shape and transition. And then for the top lid, I like to keep this one separated, and the reason I do that is because, well, you'll see better in the video where I actually do that. But just to kind of roughly explain it, you have if you look at your eyelid in the mirror, you have like a fold going on up here, which is what this kind of connection point is, or not connection point, but where it's kind of intermingling. It's where it's going through this top mesh of the head, and it kind of creates the illusion of having that fold. And you could even use like an inflate brush, which we might do later, to kind of exaggerate that fold. And like I said, keeping a lot of different parts is really good because it gives you a lot of control over your mesh. But yeah, so we'll mess with it more later. I'm just kind of adjusting some stuff here, some big, and I say big, but these are pretty small little tweaks that I'm making, but they have big outcomes in terms of what the character looks like. So the more I angle these up, the more angry the character looks. And I will be softening these as we go, but I like to keep my brows at least pretty hard in terms of transitions for a while, just so I can kind of visualize them easier. And then as I go along, I will soften them, and I'll use like a trim brush, kind of like I'm doing on the nose here, as well as you know, some other stuff to like my smooth brush. But keep it as a hard transition for now. Makes it a little easier to figure out where plane changes are happening, and then you can kind of work with it a bit easier. Alright, so that's enough rambling for this part. I think we will merge these eyelids down into the face in the next episode, and the nose and lips and ears are looking pretty grody, so maybe we'll work on those as well as create some hair. We'll figure it out in the next one, so I'll see you guys in the next part. Alright.